Live from the 607 is the ODPH Entertainment Edition, where we're talking movies, comics, TV, and more. Why don't you join in the conversation? Hashtag ODPH, because here we go. Welcome to another edition of the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, hashtag ODPH podcast. I am your host, Ken M. Joining me in studio, it's the one, the only, Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to discuss, so let's waste no more time. You know the drill by now. If you're new to the show, hit us up on our social media with the hashtag ODPH. Join in the conversation because, man, we have a lot to discuss in the land of entertainment. And let's kick off the show by talking about one of my favorite shows that is having its season finale this Thursday as we record. It is Cloak and Dagger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you've been listening to the podcast, you know I love this show, and I haven't been diving into it so much. I've been kind of mentioning it in one-shots, but the second to last episode, however you want to define it, holy smokes.
Okay.
You want to talk about getting me amped up for a season finale. This did it. Not that I needed more motivation prior, but this really kicks in. We are talking spoilers, so if you're not familiar, binge watch, free form, however you can get a hold of it, catch up, because I'm going to start breaking in the spoilers in 3, 2, 1, let's go. So this episode and season has been really focusing on the villain known as Despair. Now, his Marvel Comics history is a little kind of murky as well. Not really a household villain name, would you say, Pat?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Right. But they have done an excellent job establishing this character, and especially for Cloak and Dagger, who really don't have a well-known rogues gallery, if you will.
No,
but Brooklyn Micklin has been doing this, and he has been making this character into something that really you could think it was a throwaway character, so to speak, at the beginning, but he has really emphasized just how making him such a tragic portrayal, and just you don't sympathize, but you can get where his convictions are coming from and just everything going on. I mean, Brooklyn has absolutely crushed it in this role.
And I'll say, it's kind of like you said in past episodes. Like you said, they don't have the biggest or best rogues gallery, because more often, I think if you were to like sit down on a sheet of paper and then like put two columns, like their own line and then lines they've appeared in, they've appeared in more superheroes' other lines than their actual own.
Right. They've been very closely associated since they debuted in the Spider-Man universe, so to speak, the sub-universe of the Marvel universe, because once you kind of break off in your spin-off character from a larger hero, you kind of have the same rogues gallery to kind of start off with.
Yeah.
So this is no exception per se, because Despair has been kind of mixed in with the Marvel's superheroes, and I've seen a couple of times he's faced Spider-Man and such, but to see his portrayal as focused with Cloak and Dagger has been really something to see. And this was the origin of Despair. And what we see is, I love how they timestamp this too, because they go 96 months prior.
Okay.
So you have an established time frame of what's going on.
Let's say I've been watching other shows and know, hey, people don't like it when we just time jump and don't give any frame reference.
Game of Thrones. Excuse me.
Walking Dead as well.
Yes. This one nailed it right on the head. 96 months prior, they show the character of Andre, who is Despair, who's playing in a jazz band, and he's really focused on hitting the blue note. And it's this, he's trying to describe just the effect it has on the crowd and how it mesmerizes. And you just really get into it. He needs to hit this note. As just a performer, and if you know anybody that's in music, it's always a focus. If they can hit some certain note, some certain key, they know they've hit it, and they know they got that connection with the crowd. And as he's going to play, he's trying to hit that note, and he collapses on stage. And you kind of find out that he's having issues with migraines. He's kind of having some health issues, that this is really what's causing. Down the road, you find out that this is what is the major factor, that he can't do what he loves, and that's play music, and he's really struggling with this. And at this point, too, they're doing a little time jumps, but they don't go today and really kind of establish that. But you obviously know when you see Cloak and Dagger appear on the screen, then you know that you're in the current time frame. And at this point, they have gone through 8 prior episodes where their lives have been turned into a living nightmare because of this character. So they're making the plan to take him down once and for all. And I love how this is just developed organically. This hasn't been just, okay, we know the bad guy and this, we have our typical fight. No, this has been you're really seeing the questions of the characters in this episode and in this series entirely too. And I know I sing the praises of Olivia Holt, and she has absolutely been killing it this season. Aubrey Joseph has really sunk his teeth into this material too. And this was arguably one of his strongest episodes, because where they go with this is they really have to kind of make, dare I say, uncomfortable allies with certain characters on the show. That they really are kind of at their wits' end, that they really need to make a point that they have to take a stance against despair. And at this point too, man, I'm so amped up I can't even talk. At this point too, Tandy's mom is under despair's control too, and she's gone. And at this point, they have to make the choice, okay, we really have to go and really step outside the comfort zone and do some stuff that maybe is kind of against where our characters have been. But this isn't like a forced character switch. It's just you really sense the gravity of the situation. And at this point, too, you're seeing that Tandy is teaming up with Mayhem, who Emma Lahana has been a stellar surprise this season, and just where she's been playing the dual roles of Bridget and Mayhem. And now where they are merged on the show, this is something very interesting to see play forward. And as we go into this, they're teaming up to find Lila, who they find on the side of the road as they're looking for Andre. And obviously, it's that hummingbird note, the blue note, the one that he's been emphasizing is, the magical note that, kind of eases his pain and can help, control others. And obviously that she's just kind of focused on that. And at this point, Mayhem and Tandy take Lila away so Despair doesn't know where she is. We jump back to 92 months, and you see Andre leave his trumpet in the street, and he's holding his head, and he's in a lot of pain, and he starts heading towards a bridge, like he's going to jump and kill himself. Well, as he's standing on said bridge, what do we see but the Roxanne oil tanker?
Oh, boy.
That has caused the powers of Cloak, the powers of Dagger, everything that has really made this show the characters who they are. And as you see, at this point, when the explosion happens, he slips and falls into the water. So when he has nothing left to go, he then hits the water, and then he wakes up in the hospital. And at this point, too, there is some time jumping again, where Ty is calling his mom, and he's following Solomon, who you saw was associated with the Uptown Kings, and he's really saying, okay, I need to go find Despair at all costs. I'm willing to work with my enemies. And at this point, it's kind of like a moral struggle for Cloak, but he's handling this so well. And like I said, Aubrey Joseph really had such a strong episode. But here is something that really caught me and made me go, okay, did you know what newspaper they were reading and who was mentioned in the article?
Daily Bugle and Peter Parker?
Close.
Oh, okay.
There was an article about Luke Cage.
Hello.
Written by one Karen Page.
Ooh, okay.
Everybody got name dropped, and they were referencing Luke Cage a lot. Now, I know my first instinct was like, okay, is this foreshadowing something? And I know the deal with Netflix, and we're going to be waiting a while.
Yeah, they can't use the characters. There's nothing that says they can't mention them.
Right. And at this point, I kind of had a little like, okay, we've tied in Misty Knight last season. We're tying in Luke Cage this season. Is it possible, and I'm just throwing the karma out there, maybe, just maybe, something can get worked out down the road for a Luke Cage appearance on Cloak and Dagger? Which, if that happens, I apologize for me marking out on Twitter, because that's going to happen pretty much the entire episode. But regardless, at this point, Ty is trying to establish a meeting with the Uptown Kings, and just really, you see him having that moral struggle that he's trying to be the one to save the city, but he's got to work with his enemies to do it. And at this point, just seeing how this is interacting, Pat, is just, when you kind of were jumping into the season, and what you've seen with Cloak and Dagger too, have you really kind of seen that moral struggle with them, per se?
Yeah, maybe a little bit to a certain degree.
Right. But you haven't really seen it to this level, that they're almost at their rock bottom where they have to go work with their enemies. And at this point, too, they do another jump back, and this is when you see Andre fall into the water, and he wakes up, and Lila is the nurse on duty, and this is where he's first using his powers. And this is kind of where we see, where I think is such a cool take, and I've spoken about how I love the soundtrack on the show, and just how much music is such a part of the show, is when Despair is using his powers, he's entering a record store, which I think is just a unique take on doing the whole mind control. And you can see that he's looking at the bins that say reissues, and he's looking at just how everybody is just, he accesses the memories, and he's just playing music, and just the song is kind of encompassing them. And I think it's just such a cool take on that. And at this point too, you see that Tandy is trying to enter Lila's mind, and it's just all static. And then when they start going into the memories, you see that Andre has forced Lila to quit the hospital to get her music back, and you just start seeing the memory of when they started being the head people responsible for the domestic counseling group. That's where Tandy and company were at the beginning of the season, so it kind of all ties in tenfold. And just how it plays off, that this is how he's just manipulating the situation, and has been from the get-go, which I mean is, I would say is kind of a small or a slow burn, but it hits so hard when it does. But at this point, this is when Andre catches the team inside Lila, and he's just basically says his whole plan that he wants to absorb so much pain to heal his headaches to essentially become a god. And at this point, too, the team knows they can't do anything to stop him. And then this is when the episode gets all crazy, because at this stage, you have all the different personalities, the combustible components in the sequence, and they're all meeting. What do you think is going to happen, Pat?
Powder keg meat match.
Right. Because at this point, Mayhem is controlling Bridget, and she's the dominant personality. And she says, well, Lila can't help us. Let's kill her. And how do you think Tandy reacts to this?
Not well.
Tandy says, no, we're not doing this. And at this point, they start having a crazy knockdown, drag-out battle.
Like, I'm just picturing this in my head, and I can't help but think of the one meme from The Office where you've got the three characters, and I apologize, I haven't seen The Office, but I've seen the meme, where you've got the three characters standing in a room pointing their little finger guns at each other, and like they're, point one and point two hands at one person and switch back and forth. I'm like picturing it as that.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild to see as this, and then they're just going at it. I mean, they're full tilt, just in a fight scene, which is awesome. I mean, it really just kind of says at this point, Dagger is willing to defend, and she knows she's in over her head because Mayhem has been such a strong force. But then we flip to Ty, who now has his meeting with the heads of the gangs, and what does he do when they start giving him some lip? He shoves a gangbanger off the roof, and he catches him before he hits the ground in the cloak and teleportates him back up.
That's either going to make somebody shoot you or run away in terror.
Right. This was sort of, to easily describe it to the comics, this is when Night Thrasher had Nova off the ledge to reenact his powers and threw him off. Except, in this case, if he could teleport, he would have brought him back to the building. But regardless, this is when Ty is really stepping up, and you can just see the change in demeanor, that he basically puts the law down. And this is kind of like how when Luke Cage takes over Harlem at the end of season 2.
Mm-hmm.
Almost the same kind of vibe. That Ty says, this is the situation. And he lays down his law to everyone that he has in that attendance to spread the word that he is now taking over, and this is how things are going to happen. And I mean, this was, like I said, this had to be one of Aubrey Joseph's strongest episodes. And you just see how he handles the situation. And he basically sends him on the way and says, the APB is out for Andre. If anybody finds Despair, I want to know, and I want to know now. And then they flip back to the fight between Tandy and Mayhem, and they nearly kill each other until Mayhem just kind of falls back and says, fine, she's saved. Do it yourself. I'm out of here. And at this point, Cloak and Dagger now track down Despair at where they think he's at a jazz club, and they're in full tilt that they were going we're going to have to cross a line to end this fate of the city. There is no turning back. We need to make sure we pull this. And at this point, you hear Andre playing the trumpet, and his symbol starts to light up, and they've been kind of dealing with the different kind of voodoo aspects of the show, so to speak. And you see like a symbol light up, and something's going on, and then they track him to his original club where they started at the beginning of the season, and you see his victims of who's under his mind control, and you see Tandy's mom.
Oh, boy.
And at this point, it's almost like a Pied Piper sequence for the Blue Note. But they do one of the coolest action shots they've done on the show, and bravo to the fight choreographers and whoever came up with this idea of Cloak and Dagger's writers team did. Tandy throws a knife at Cloak. He teleports it through himself so it shoots out on stage.
Oh, that's awesome.
And hits Andre. Despair. And then everybody disappears. And then slowly you see that everything just fades away and everybody disappears. And like, what is going on? Like, nobody has any idea what's happening. And then they flash back to the record store sequence where that is Despair's domain, and he walks through the doors. And then all of a sudden you just hear the blue note fill the sky. And at this point, the city appears to be lost. With one episode left, what do you think is going to hit the fan here, Pat?
Everything.
Absolutely. I apologize, I'm yelling into the mic. I am that amped up about this. Cloak and Dagger has been the surprise. I would say arguably that and Doom Patrol has been the early surprise of 2019 for how good it's been. And we all knew Cloak and Dagger had an amazing first season and definitely flew under some radars. But to see how they've been handling such subjects as human trafficking and domestic violence and tying it in with the superhero world that they live in the MCU, and they've been pulling it off with such strong performances from everybody on the show, it has just been phenomenal to see how this is going to end, because Despair, like we said, has never been a well-known villain. You don't exactly refer to him like Dr. Doom or Magneto or anybody else from the Marvel Universe. So to see how Brooklyn Micklin has been playing him has been just lights out. And like I said, Emma Lahana and Aubrey Joseph and Olivia Holt and everybody else on the show has been doing such strong character work. I can't emphasize this enough. You need to catch the season finale this week. Now, if you're not watching live because you have stuff going on, sure, catch it on Freeform On Demand or however you catch shows. Because when you have a show that's doing this much quality work and flying under the radar too for a lot of fans, because let's face it, they don't have the Netflix universe tie-in, so to speak. They're not part of the movie universe in that degree, but everybody's connected. Cloak and Dagger has really stepped up their game when it comes to subject matter, to the writing, to the acting, to the soundtrack. It has been everything that you want to see with a show. And
they're also on a network that I would say, by and large, unless you're the right demographic that Freeform typically goes for, which is the younger, the teenage, audience. It might be one that when you're scrolling through, you just kind of glance over and you don't pay it any attention other than a weekend when they're running a Disney animated movie marathon.
Right. This has been such a refreshing case to see. And like I say, I applaud Freeform for taking the shot and letting the characters go in that direction. Because like I said, the subject material is very serious. And they've handled it very delicately and respectfully too. But to see how they're tying this in, like you said, you don't think to find this on Freeform. I would never have guessed that they would pull this off. But they're doing it and they're crushing it. And it's been such a strong build-up, and taking a villain, like I said, Despair, who wasn't even on the radar to begin with, and how they're flipping it, where I said his powers are very unique in how they're doing it. I mean, sure, they could have just done boring mind control, but to see how they're flipping it for the emotional reason, and so he eases his pain, he's just going to control everything and then drown out his sorrow with everybody else's. Like, it's such a wild take, but it works, and it works very, very well. I can't say enough great things about this. I know I haven't been really diving in too much. I know I was supposed to post it on the Parlay Points blog with the Big Bang Theory, but honestly, after watching that show last week, I can't even get into it. I had to open the show with it. But let me know what you think. The season finale is this Thursday. If you've been watching Cloak and Dagger, hit us up. Let us know what you think of it. If you're going to binge watch it, definitely hit us up after. But I'm telling you this. Don't miss the chance to catch the season finale of Cloak and Dagger. Hashtag renew Cloak and Dagger. Salute to everybody on the show. You guys have been doing some great work. It definitely deserves to be watched, so make sure you do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward, no steps back.
Hey, this is Vince, the Common Man Seattle, a local MMA fighter, telling you to keep on listening to the ODPH, the 607's up-and-coming newest podcast.
We knew right where we'd be, floating on the airwaves, you see. It's a heartbreak, soul-shaped radio attack. Taking 4 steps forward and no steps back. We knew right where we'd be.
Coming back for segment number 2 on this edition of the ODPH podcast, and we talked a little Cloak and Dagger last segment. We're going to flip it to another side of the MCU with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And we're going to get weird.
Yeah, let's get weird.
Not Legion weird, but weird.
Not Legion weird. Not Happy weird, which is having their season finale on Wednesday on Sci-Fi, might I add. No, this got very, very trippy in a very unexpected way.
Yes, I'd see what you did there. It was in the title.
Yes, I did. So we're going to talk some spoilers in 3, 2, 1. Pat, what did you think of the episode?
It was weird, but in a good way. Like, I enjoyed it. It was kind of like it was a fun adventure.
It definitely was. It was very lighthearted in tone, which is kind of a unique break because this one just focused on everybody that's in space right now.
Mm-hmm.
So you had Fitz and Enoch. You had Team Quake, shall we say, which is Quake, Simmons, and their team that's searching for Fitz. You did really no Coulson / Sarge. You didn't have any.
Not till like the very end.
Not till the very end. You really were dealing with what's going on in space and just the planets they're kind of dealing with. Nero, Atiza, and Kitson, which they wind up going on. And you open with the show and somebody who is just assumed as a hunter is looking for Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
And basically now has a bounty on his head. And nobody really kind of knows why. And they wind up on the planet of Kitson. And with the bounty on their head, Fitz saved the engineers on their ship prior. And what do they do in return? They rob Fitz.
Mm-hmm.
Which you expect, I guess, with space pirates.
They're pirates.
It was to be expected. So as they're kind of going with this motif, I mean, Fitz is, they give him a casino coin because they're saying, hey, we're not so bad, guys. We appreciate you saving us.
We're going to do something for you. Here's a coin.
Yeah, test your luck because reasons.
I'll say Fitz's reaction to this whole thing is, essentially, this won't buy me a pot to piss in.
Yeah. I was just waiting for him to go, like, please put me back under. I was waiting for that.
He definitely had the tone, and, like, you could definitely read his kind of mannerisms as, like, I am so done with this. I'm just over this. Like, everything wrong is going wrong.
Yeah, this is just such a unique phase to do for Fitz because he is so used to being the smartest one in the room and just not saying he has everything figured out, but he has a good sense of what's going on. And this is like, I am completely out of my element.
So he's also used to situations where he's able to, like, okay, he might not be able to fix it immediately, but like he can problem solve his way through in scientific method his way through and get the results he need. But he is completely, in a fish out of water because he's in a different part of the universe where none of the rules he's used to apply.
Right.
Where it's entire beings and races and rules and customs that he has no idea.
No, he's completely fish out of water here. And as he's going into the casino, this is where the rest of Team Quake, I'll just refer to them as, show up.
Yeah.
And at this point, the hunter that was open at the beginning of the show finds them and shoots Quake, which I was like, okay, business is now picking up.
Yeah.
And while he's dealing with Team Quake, he does mention that Fitz is to be blamed for quote-unquote universe tampering, which I was really kind of questioning, okay, what's going on here? Is he part of some time council? Or are we having like a Legends of Tomorrow moment?
My guess is it has something to do with, when the agents S.H.I.E.L.D., Coulson and crew went forward into time, by Fitz going forward and freezing himself, he changed the what should have been or what should have happened.
Right, which makes sense, but it's also kind of going, all right, who is this mysterious character now that's hunting Fitz and to try fixing the timeline? So obviously time travel, it's going to get weird, so we expect it. And
it's going to get confusing.
And we're getting ready for that because I'm expecting that to get drug out for a while this season. I'm not saying that a bad thing. I'm just saying it's going to happen. And obviously on this planet, the hunter knows Fitz died, and he knows that Fitz is on the planet. He's searching for them, and then we finally see Fitz and Enoch in the casino where wacky hijinks ensue.
Well, so they don't make the first. Going to the casino isn't really their first choice they come up with. They know they need to make more money, and they get told, listen, you can go one of two places. You can go to the casinos, or you can go to the brothels. And Fitz goes, I am not going to the brothels. We are not doing that. Because Enoch tries convincing him, like, listen, it's a little unconventional, but we're both good-looking specimens. We're relatively young. And he just stops him right there. No, we are not doing this.
Right. And Enoch is quote-unquote best friend. And I love how they're referring to that. It was just, they had so much comedic timing with each other. It was just so spot on. And Enoch was saying, oh, yes, I'm trying to figure this out. Oh, I can figure out this casino game.
He reminded me very much of Data from Star Trek The Next
Yeah.
Generation very early on.
Yeah, I agree.
Very robotic, very precise, very clipped in his sentences, but is still trying to learn about real organisms.
Right, because at this point, the only thing we've really seen that Enoch has picked up on this alien planet is to not eat some odd-shaped candy, it looked like, that was offered to him by the pirates that robbed him earlier. No, Enoch knew that was not meant for Terrians, and he advised them not to. But then we fast forward to when Team Quake shows up on Fitz's old ship and runs into said people.
Yeah.
Oh, they just decided to dive into whatever they were supposed to be eating.
Yeah, so they're starving for food. They're starving for everything. And Davis, I believe is the character's name, sees the guy holding these candy-looking things and goes, "Oh my God, food, give it to me!" And he scarfs down. I think they said at one point he scarfed down like 6 of them or something like that. And then Fitz and Quake eat one, or Simmons, excuse me, and Quake eat 1 or 2 apiece. And it was just like, oh, okay. Well, we'll see where this goes.
Right. So then obviously they fast forward to where Enoch is playing at the casino games and he gets taken at the casino. Somebody completely sets him up. And I mean, it's just completely the gullible fish out of water element that happens at a casino, where somebody is just completely taken for a ride by somebody working the tables.
Well, and especially you have a robotic being who, let's be honest, he should have thrown a few games just to kind of like, I'm like, all right, if you're winning, however many hands in a row, you're winning that consistently, somebody's going to be a little suspicious of you. Like, hey, how's this guy winning so much? I'm like, hey, throw a hand or two. You're doing good.
Right. And that was the thing. He can't really help out at that situation. Fitz is watching this and he just watches everything go up in smoke. So obviously the whole brothel idea came about, which I love how Simmons later said, oh, there's no chance Fitz is in that brothel. I will tell you that right now. But we jump back to where Enoch says, well, I have an idea. And he winds up putting Fitz up as human collateral.
Well, and it's funny. He poses this idea to him. He goes, oh, well, I forget how he posed it to him, but he was like, he told him how much money it would net them if he won. And Fitz goes, why didn't you present this to me at the outset? And he goes, because if you lose, you're sold into slavery.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh.
Well, wait, what? And at this point, he sees that he's wound up at a table, and the person next to him is killed because
he loses.
He loses. So at this point, Fitz is going, well, this is all going downhill. And at the same time, Team Quake shows up at the casino. And at this point, they are tripping out of their minds.
Yeah.
Fear and loathing in Kitson. That's the easiest way I could describe it.
Yeah.
Because you see Quake and Simmons are just out of their minds.
Like, they completely forget why they're there, which for Simmons is really saying something because she jeopardized the entire mission and the livelihoods of the rest of the crew for this mission. And she's now sitting in at a casino bar with Quake, tripping out of her mind, and they think it's girls' night, and they're making the most noise I've ever seen.
Yeah, this was a cool thing to see because you usually don't see Simmons' guard let down like this. Very rarely.
No.
And with Quake and the interaction, too, I mean, there were so many Harry Potter references.
Well, and I like the callbacks to season 1 where Simmons brings up how they found her, and they go, oh,
they found her in the van.
Remember we found you in the van? Oh, yeah, we found you in the van. Oh, that van smelled. Did it? No, it didn't. Yeah, no, it did.
Yeah, it was just such a cool throwback line that was like, okay, I can kind of get down with this. And then you just see just the more wacky hijinks is happening. And at this point, too, when the team had captured said hunter at the beginning, he winds up escaping.
So he disconnects a joint or something.
Yeah,
he
contorts his wrists or
get out of there. He pops his wrist out of place and slips out of there or something wild.
Yeah, at this point, so he's now on the loose and looking for Fitz too. I mean, it was almost like a throwaway scene. So if you blinked, you missed it. Because after they wind up subduing him in the beginning, it's like, okay, well, who's watching him?
Well, yeah. So you got Davis and the other girl on Team Quake on the ship.
Piper, I think.
Piper and the bounty hunter, for lack of a better term, slips out of his handcuffs, and he's standing there. And Davis, who we know from what Fitz and from what Simmons and Quake told us, has taken 6 of these hallucinogens, is standing there, and he's just got the bug-eyed look of, oh no, and then he's trying to hunt him on the ship while he's tripping.
Yeah, and just destined to fail there. And then they flash back to where Enoch is trying to help Fitz win his game, and all of a sudden he short circuits.
Yeah, meanwhile he's helping him to finish his game because it's a complete game of chance. It reminded me a little bit of blackjack.
I was going to say blackjack or baccarat.
Yeah, but yeah, it reminded me of one of those. And so he goes, "Oh, how am I going to win?" And he goes, "Well, he asks Enoch, "Why can't you play?" He's like, "Listen, I'm going to be sitting here essentially counting cards, and I'm going to utter a pitch or a tone so high in frequency that only humans can hear it. One tone will mean hit, two will mean stay." And he's and he's going through. And at one point, it's like, the dealer's getting a little pissed off, like, "Yo, you got to make a decision right now, or you're gonna lose."
And at this point too, it kind of seems like his cover was blown, already prior to, because then once Enoch shuts down, essentially, which happened literally out of nowhere.
Well, no, wasn't it the result of the bounty hunter?
Well, that's what it turned out to be at the end, but
okay.
at the time they didn't know. At the time they were kind of just...
It was weird in the moment because like he's just standing there and it's like his eyes are going back and forth like he's trying to calculate and he's bugging out and I'm like, what's going on?
Right, and because it turns out to be the bounty hunter arrives in the casino and he's looking for him. So he knows, obviously, with Enoch is with Fitz because he knows a lot more that's going on than he decides
well, and I don't
to
think he
reveal.
was at the casino. I think he was on the ship at one of their computer terminals messing with things because then Piper and Davis show up and Davis tries to shoot at him and misses hilariously and ends up destroying the computer terminal, which then stops Enoch from freaking out.
Very valid point, too. I mean, that point got a little confusing for me, so I think you're right, because they kept flashing forward to tripped out Quake having a fight scene using her powers.
All the meanwhile before this, Quake and Simmons are underneath the table having a real heart-to-heart moment about why Quake has not had much success in love.
Yeah, which was very interesting to see.
Yeah.
I would say I definitely liked the episode for that. I mean, just comedic timing and just like the rare heart-to-heart moments that this team has because they've gone through so much.
Yeah.
You haven't really seen that kind of bonding in a while.
No.
So to see that really happen, and obviously, just Quake and Simmons kind of having that heart-to-heart about feelings, definitely interesting to see. So we'll have to kind of see what ramifications from that happen. But at this point, too, this is when Simmons decides she's making the final run to see Fitz, has an idea where he is, makes the run, they see each other, and then what happens, Pad?
Everyone's least favorite bounty hunter in this universe, in this story, shows up.
Does the teleportation disc that Sarge has been showing that they're doing, and takes Fitz away right from Simmons. And,
talk about ripping my heart out.
Yeah, which you kind of had a feeling was going to happen because things were just working out too good.
It was too good, and I was like, oh, this is a turn. Like, normally they don't give us this happy reunion until much later in the storyline. Maybe they're switching things up on us. And there she goes.
Right. And at this point, they end the episode, and then we get our bonus scene with Sarge and Jacko shooting a weapon into the sky, and it looks like it's shooting for a map of some sort. And they get a location, and then who do we see return but Deke?
Yeah.
The grandson of Simmons and Fitz?
Grandson, great-grandson. He's in that lineage.
Yeah. And so now that builds up for his return next episode. And there's just so much going on. I mean, overall, it was definitely a lighthearted episode, a little break, a little not to be expected, but it definitely did its magic. And then we found out a little more news coming out about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, so there's going to be a couple surprise guest appearances, not really surprise guest appearances, but some interesting guest appearances. You're going to have Anthony Michael Hall play the casino kingpin, of course, the casino where Enoch and Fitz have been running around for. And then you're also going to have Sherry Somm show up on the show. I believe it's next week.
Yes, I think so, too. And her character, we're still getting a little information about.
Yeah, they're being kind of secretive about it. There's just kind of photos posted of, hey, she's going to be on the show.
Right. So we'll kind of have to wait and see. Could go a lot of different ways. I think the show is definitely throwing enough curveballs that they're staying in space for a while. It's going to be very interesting because, like we said, this is on a short season run for this season.
Yeah.
So, final thoughts on the episode, Pad?
A little different, little change of pace, but they've been going so hard and so long in the dark and gritty and action for so long. It was nice to kind of take a step back and have a little more lighthearted approach.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, it took a little while to see because, it was just so unexpected to see all the comedy on the show. Because, they do have their moments here and there.
Yeah.
And a couple one-liners and such. But to see more of a lighthearted episode, especially with Quake and Simmons having their moments, and you really kind of see how their friendship is, finally brought out in the open, so to speak, that you really haven't seen that interaction before.
Right. We've seen them have conversations back and forth, but from what we've seen on screen, they really have never had this heart-to-heart together.
Right. So it was definitely a refreshing to take to see where this goes from here. I mean, it's anybody's guess.
Yeah.
But definitely let us know what you think. Hit us up on that hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts on this past Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.? We want to know. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hey, this is Brian Wolf from Fair City Fire. You are listening to ODPH, the greatest podcast in Binghamton.
Woo!
Hot lips touching, cool thighs feeling, shudder running up, her spine spinning, long day to a long night, but I'm not stopping till I get it right.
Coming back for segment number 3 on this edition of the ODPH podcast. And let's talk some Godzilla, shall we? Godzilla, King of the Monsters, is kicking in the door on movie theaters this weekend.
Yeah.
Super, super excited about this.
Oh, so am I.
I mean, just to see Godzilla and King Kong and the MonsterVerse come back to the big screen, because that's truly where it needs to be. You need to see it in a movie theater. You can't really watch it on TV is cool and all, but see it in like an IMAX theater or something like that, just mind blowing.
I can vouch for that. The first movie, like actual Hollywood movie I saw in IMAX, I've seen, kind of the tourist IMAX movies type of thing when you go places. But this was my true first Hollywood. Godzilla, the Bryan Cranston one, was my first Hollywood movie IMAX experience, and my mind and body was it was an experience, because that first scene in the movie where Godzilla really gave you its roar, my chair shook.
Yeah, when you're experiencing a movie like that and to that level, it's just one of those definition moments for you.
And it was one of those few times in my adult life I've been in a theater watching a movie and genuinely went, holy shit.
Yeah. Oh, I could fully imagine. Just to see that, and especially like when you think about like IMAX theaters and you really think about, the 3D aspect.
Yeah.
To see like a monster movie, which I think they're just perfectly born for, to really go to the theater and have that experience. I mean, that's when you go, this is why I go to the movies, and this is why I go see it.
Say, if you have an opportunity to see this movie in IMAX, I seriously encourage you to go see it, because if it's anything like the last Godzilla movie, which I saw in IMAX, it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime experience.
I think it's going to be even better, because as we dig into it now, this is technically the third in the MonsterVerse that has been born out of Kong Skull Island.
Yep.
Which had Tom Hiddleston and Brie Larson in it.
Yep. So if you're going chronologically, Kong Skull Island is the first movie that takes place in this timeline, because it took place back in like the 70s or something like that. That would then follow to Godzilla, the first movie that really set off this whole MonsterVerse and really got things kickstarted, and then leads into this one here, releasing this week, Godzilla, King of Monsters. No idea how much time has passed, although presumably some time has passed, because if you go and watch the final trailer, there's an interesting line in it that, they're having to deal with, 3 monsters, Ghidorah, Mothra, and I'm blanking on the third one. Rodan, thank you. And how do we fight this? And we have to set Godzilla free, which is, for me, is an interesting line, because if you remember the end of the last Godzilla movie, which I know it's been a while, some of you may not have seen it, but the end of the last Godzilla movie featured Godzilla saving the day and kind of going off into the ocean and doing its own thing, and that was the last you'd seen of it.
Right, because, with the 2014 movie, which was kind of the reintroduction of Godzilla to mainstream American audiences, this was kind of like we didn't really know what to expect, because the last time we had it was the Matthew Broderick version.
Yeah, from 1998.
Yes, which is now on 4K.
Yeah, so a funny side story. I was out shopping this past weekend, and I was over at Best Buy, browsing their new movies, see what came in, and seeing if anything piqued my interest. And on the one side where they had the 4K movies that were just released, the 1998 Matthew Broderick Godzilla movie was just released in 4K. I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely tying in at the right time. Yeah. Just to go over the lineage of Godzilla and just, how he's arguably one of the biggest well-known monsters in movie history.
Yeah, I would say he's, if you show any Godzilla image, most people will know who he is.
Right, and just, over the course of history, just how CGI has developed and just seeing where it began to where it is now, and just the, dare I say, cult-like following that follows
very
him.
much so.
To see it obviously the Broderick version, not one of our top favorites here on the panel by any means.
No.
But to see when the Bryan Cranston version came back, I definitely liked the movie.
Yeah.
It was more of a surprise because we really wasn't sure what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But to see now how it's tying into the MonsterVerse is now set up because Kong, Skull Island, the bonus scene, it definitely introduced Monarch, which is the agency that's investigating these, creatures.
Yeah.
We'll just put it out there like that. To kind of have that introduction, just seeing how everything's tying in, and now we fast forward from the 2014 film of Godzilla because Kong Skull Island was set, in the 70s, I believe.
Yeah.
So to see where it is now is definitely something to see. And as we go into it, the trailers have looked just spot on.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I do find it very odd that they're playing Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Oh yeah, that version of Somewhere Over the Rainbow they play in the last trailer is very, very creepy, but in a good way.
It's in a good sense, but it's just kind of like, okay, very kind of haunting a little bit, which I do like, but it's just so different in its own, aspects, so to speak. So to see where they go from there, we obviously see there's a lot of big fights going on. There's a lot of big action happening, which you need to happen for Godzilla, because I think if there's one take away that I got from the 2014 film, it didn't have enough Godzilla.
Well, and the review embargo has been lifted, so reviews are starting to hit the internet as we record. I haven't read any of the reviews, like, in depth, gone into them, but from the few reactions I've seen online on Twitter, that I know that was the concern and a kind of a complaint a lot of people had. From what I've read from a few people that didn't really go into spoilers, they take, the amount of time Godzilla and the monsters were on screen and turn it to 11.
Right, and that's what they need to do. Because you want to go in there, if you're going to say King of the Monsters, and you are establishing a monster verse, you need to have big action sequences. It's almost one of those situations where you're not really going for the plot. You're going to see a Rock'em Sock'em fight with giant monsters.
Mm-hmm.
That's the selling point.
Yeah.
You really shouldn't be worried about too much of a script, but they do have one because obviously Monarch has been investigating the rise of these, creatures coming back, and you see Mothra is introduced, and Rodan and King Ghidorah, which is the three-headed monster that you see in photos.
Yep.
And just, how is humanity going to deal with it?
Because it's not just, Godzilla and then these three we mentioned. No, there's one point in the trailer where you can tell there's somebody really trying to get their heads wrapped around it, because I remember one of the earlier trailers, there was almost like a Senate hearings or government hearings they were having about the thing. So presumably it's going to take place there. But like they say, how many of these things are there? 17 and counting. Yeah, that's not something you can rest on your butt and go, we'll deal with it when it gets here.
Right. This is something they have to deal with now, and obviously dealing with that, the humanity aspect of how the armed forces are going to deal with it just for the planet's safety is really interesting, because now it's instead of humans fighting monsters, it's humans fighting monsters versus monsters.
Yeah.
And then how do you go from there? I mean, it's just the basic selling point. The plot doesn't need to really be that elaborate per se, but they are tying it in very nicely, and whatever they're trying to do to establish this universe is going to be something to see, because we really don't know too much about the characters per se. We have Millie Bobby Brown, who's from Stranger Things, is now in this, and she's playing a very big role in it, but we really don't know what her role is per se. Kyle Chandler from Friday Night Lights is in it, and we have an idea what's going on with them.
Also, you've also got Bradley Whitford, of course, who was played Josh in The West Wing, is going to be there. Ken Watanabe is making a return appearance as Dr. Ishiro Serizawa, who, of course, was in the last Godzilla film.
So to just kind of see where they're going with this, Pad, I guess, what is your expectations for this film?
My expectations for this film is, given the fact that it's three monsters and Godzilla, it's going to get all, and just based off of the trailers, where I believe it was like the first teaser trailer, you had the shot of like, I believe it was Washington, D.C., and like there were hurricanes and tornadoes and the sky was on fire and lightning. Like, I'm expecting things to get real crazy, and just like more moments like from the first Godzilla movie where he first used his atomic breath and the entire theater went nuts. I'm expecting a lot more moments like that.
I agree. I mean, my basic expectation with this is I want to be entertained. And I definitely think if you're going to go to the movies and you think summer blockbusters, we've had the Avengers, which has been amazing. And I mean, how many times have you seen Endgame by now? To see kind of a little break in the action, so to speak, and you're just taking it back to a simple principle of just, big monsters destroying cities and having these big rock'em sock'em battles. This is where it's just going to be fun to watch as a fan. And to kind of see how they're going to establish this for a shared universe is also a really interesting thing to look at.
Because the other thing with this film that I think I'm also most excited for, and I don't know about you, is the setup going to be at the end of the film, because coming next year, after this is all said and done, we have the heavyweight matchup of the century. Yeah, I'm calling it now. Forget Canelo Triple G Part 3.
Whoa.
Forget any other boxing match you might have. No, this is gonna be the matchup of the year, 2020. It's going to be Godzilla versus King Kong.
Yes, and that is already completed filming, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, if I read correctly, according to IMDb, it's in post-production, but if I remember correctly, they did kind of the Pirates of the Caribbean, Lord of the Rings style approach to this, where they filmed Godzilla King of Monsters and then immediately filmed Godzilla versus King Kong immediately after.
And that's smart to do, because if this is already established, and you can definitely hit the ground running, and build off some momentum of this, because like I said, there's a lot of hype behind this, and it's kind of a mixed reaction from fans I've seen thus far on Twitter and social media, that everybody's kind of going into this going, okay, we don't really know what to expect. But I think your expectation should be this. You're going to go there and you're going to be entertained, because at the end of the day, it's giant monsters battling each other.
Yeah.
I mean, this is where you look at like Pacific Rim, and which, I mean, when that first came out, that definitely hit a lot of fans differently.
Yeah.
This is going to be kind of in the same vein, but when you have Godzilla established, I mean, and look at the different incarnations of him over the years.
Yeah.
That you've had, most recently, was it Shin Godzilla?
Shin Godzilla. I know there's 3 animated movies that are on Netflix. That supposed to be good. I've got them on my watch list still.
Right. You just have different incarnations of just such a classic movie character. And just, I mean, obviously over the years, when CGI has developed and you kind of see where it's gone and, where they're at now, I mean, just to watch it visually is going to be impressive.
I'll say CGI has changed very much so from the last Godzilla movie in 2014 to here we are in 2019. I can't wait to see what they can do.
Yeah, I'm expecting big things from this, just in the sheer thing of being entertained.
Yeah.
And just visually just impressed. Am I thinking the script is going to be the greatest? No.
It doesn't need to be, though. You're coming for a knockdown, drag-out monster movie where cities are going to get destroyed.
Right. As long as it makes somewhat sense.
Yeah.
Somewhat. I mean, because like I said, we also live in the Fast and Furious universe, where we take a simple gang of street thieves that race, and now they're an international fighting unit.
Right.
That is now dealing with a superpowered villain in Hobbs and Shaw.
Right. And we're also suspending some disbelief where, we're supposed to believe that nuclear tests in the South Pacific, or whatever the origin story is, have spawned off giant monsters.
Right. But this is the beauty of Hollywood. And when you have a really good imaginative take on just a simple idea and see where it goes, look how far you can take it.
Yeah.
And obviously with Godzilla, the bar is set pretty high. To go in there and just be entertained, that's the goal it should be. And it should just be big monsters destroying things, and just a setup for wherever they're going to go with Kong. Because that's going to be the big money fight, like Pat has alluded to. That's what you want to see out of this movie. I'm excited for everything I've seen from the trailer. The CGI looks great. The acting, I mean, what else are you really to be expected from a monster movie?
Not much.
No, just you got to go in there and just be entertained. So if there are more monsters on screen, the better, and that's what you want. And as long as the story kind of does a little bit to add to it, I'm down for it. So I'm excited to see it. Godzilla King of the Monsters hits movie theaters this weekend. Hit us up on that hashtag, though. Hashtag ODPH. What is your thoughts on Godzilla? If you've already seen it, let us know. If you're not going to go see it, or you are going to go see it, tell us why. We're very interested to hear your reaction. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. The ODPH is proud sponsors of RoberCon 2019, happening September 28th and 29th. Don't miss out on Binghamton, New York's biggest sci-fi, fantasy, and gaming convention of the year. For badge details and more info, check out robercon.org. Coming back for the final segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pat, kick us off with those one-shots.
Well, of course, got to talk a little bit about the Avengers Endgame box office update, because I'm getting a little nervous here. It's starting to slow down a little bit, and I was reading some articles last week that it might not hit the all-time record until much later in the year that they thought. The drop-off is a little more steep than what forecasters predicted. However, it did set a record over the weekend.
Okay.
It became the second movie all-time, joining Star Wars The Force Awakens, to make over $800 million domestically at the box office.
Wow.
Yeah, so only Star Wars The Force Awakens and now Avengers Endgame have made over $800 million domestically at the box office. So I thought that was a very cool little factoid, tips to them. Also, I saw Aladdin, of course, the Disney remake of the animated classic over the weekend. It did very well at the box office. The studio estimated it would make just over $86 million at the box office. It finished number one at the box office over the 4-day weekend. Of course, it was Memorial Day, so it was a long weekend. It beat estimates by almost $5.5 million, finishing with $91.5 million, beating out John Wick Chapter 3 and Avengers Endgame at the box office. I very much enjoyed the movie.
Yeah, I was going to say, you went to go see it.
Yeah, I went to go see it. I very much enjoyed the movie. If you liked the animated movie, you will enjoy this one. Yes, obviously there have been some changes made to the story, but it's nothing drastic in terms of like it completely changes the outcome of the movie. You know, Will Smith's Genie, you know, at first it's a little different to see, but like by the time the Prince Ali song comes on, you're used to it. He very much makes the role his own while also kind of bringing in that comedic, you know, off the cuff humor that Robin Williams was used to. There's one point in the movie where, you know, he's giving Aladdin his prince outfit before they go to Agrabah, and he finally hits the right costume and he goes, "Oh, I'm on fire. I'm on fire. I'm awesome." And he goes running around like he's actually on fire. And he goes, "Oh, somebody put me out. Somebody put me out." So, you know, Will Smith is great. Naomi Scott crushes it as Princess Jasmine. Like, probably one of the strongest, if not the strongest performance of the entire movie.
Wow.
Like, Naomi Scott just absolutely crushes it. A Whole New World, her performance with A Whole New World gave me goosebumps. It was just really a sight to see. It was really awesome.
Now, you're the big Disney fan, so do you think it's a cool trend they're doing or a bad one that they're doing these live-action remakes of old animated films?
I think it's an interesting one, but I think at the same time they also have to be careful. Like, do certain ones, but then I feel like there's also some ones that, like, all right, you just shouldn't go near them.
Okay.
You just shouldn't touch them. You know, nothing immediately comes to mind, but like, and, you know, yeah, there have been some kind of ones that haven't been as good, but like for the most part, I haven't come out of one going, that was awful, I want my money back. So I feel like as long as you continue to get the right directors and get the right writers and the right cast and the right go for it. I'm all for it. Got some other interesting video game news. Of course, E3, the Electronic Entertainment Expo is coming up. Of course, that's the big video game conference where gamers worldwide go nuts. It is taking place Tuesday, June 11th through Thursday, June 13th. Coming up very quickly here. We got some interesting news. Of course, we got a long trailer. It's like 9 minutes or so. You can find it on the PlayStation Facebook page and YouTube and everywhere else. We got a 9-minute trailer and a release date for Death Stranding. Of course, that's the next title from famed game creator Hideo Kojima, who of course made the Metal Gear Solid series. This one's starring Norman Reedus. It comes out November 8th of 2019. We also got some more interesting cast news. You had Léa Seydoux is going to be in it. Of course, she was in the Bond girl in the most recent Bond movie, Spectre. You've got Mads Mikkelsen, of course, who was in, who's in Doctor Strange, and he's in Rogue One, and he's in James Bond, and he played Hannibal in the TV series. This one caught me by surprise. Guillermo del Toro is going to be in it.
Really?
Yes, Guillermo del Toro will be in it, voicing a character called Deadman. Not too sure what that's about, but you can see a quick glimpse of him in the trailer, and they go, Guillermo del Toro, Deadman. I'm like, oh wait, really? Okay. Then you also have Norman Reedus, as we know, he's been featured in all these trailers that have been coming out about the game. And then you have veteran voice actor Troy Baker playing in it. If you want to see some of the games he's been in, you may not know the name, but you'll know the voice if you go through his IMDb list and look at some of the games he's voiced. One of the most well-known voice actors in the game today. Very interested to see what this game's about. This is like the third or fourth trailer. I still have no idea what's going on, because there's one point in the trailer where Mads Mikkelsen character looks like he's in World War I Europe. Or so it's just, I still have no idea what's going on, but it's about Hideo Kojima wrote a letter about the trailer, and you're supposed to read before you see the trailer, but if you don't, you're fine. I guess the game's supposed to be about kind of enforcing that humans need to make connections, and it's all about connections and between people, so that'll be something very interesting to see. Got some more video game news, which I know you'll be excited for.
Break it down.
The oft-rumored, never confirmed, Avengers video game being made by Square Enix. Yes, that's Square Enix, who's made the Final Fantasy video games over the years, Kingdom Hearts, Tomb Raider, Just Cause, just to name a few. They are finally going to be revealing what it is in the world they've been working on for so long with their Avengers game at E3 in a couple of weeks. So
okay.
We'll finally find out what the heck this thing is and what they've been doing. I'm very interested to see it.
I have been waiting to hear about this for years now.
Yeah.
It feels like it was never going to happen.
Yeah.
So obviously the pressure is on them to deliver, because if this does not knock it out of the park,
Yeah.
I don't want to deal with the backlash that they are going to be dealing with.
Yeah.
Because when you're talking about the Avengers, and especially with the quality they've brought, I mean, like Pat touched upon, Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, this has a lot riding on it. So what they're going to do with this, I mean, personally, I was hoping they were going to do Marvel Ultimate Alliance.
Right.
But I know that's not going to happen, and I'm okay with it. And it's not Injustice 2 or Injustice 3. I'm okay with that too. But whatever they're going to do with this Avengers, they got to nail. And
Yeah.
I mean, would you say, I'm just going to throw this out there, do you think they tried doing like an MCU, like from point A to point B?
I'm not sure. Given the success of the Spider-Man PS4 video game, I think it might be something that ties into the Gameverse, I guess is what they're calling it at Marvel Comics now.
Okay.
Because if you haven't played the Spider-Man PS4 video game, the Avengers are in it. They're not mentioned. You don't see them, but Avengers Tower is there. Like you see them mentioned and that kind of thing. So they're already established as, hey, they're already here. They're already a thing. So I think it might be something just kind of furthering into that game verse, because as good as Insomniac Studios did on that, they can't do all these video games. You got to bring in other studios to put them out.
You got to kind of mess around and just let everybody else kind of get their stamp of approval on there, so to speak.
Yep.
I'm super excited to hear about this, though.
Yeah.
I mean, to finally see it happen. I mean, I definitely need to believe it when I see it.
Yeah.
So I'll be obviously checking out for the E3 coverage. I know you'll be all over that on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll definitely be having ODPH E3 again when that comes about, too. So super, super excited to check about that. So for my one-shots, I did mention briefly during Cloak and Dagger, but Happy is having their season finale on Sci-Fi as we were recording on Wednesday night. Trying to put into words what Happy has been doing this season, I can't do. It's been just, let's get weird times 1,000, but it's been working.
It's been sit there, watch, and don't try to figure it out in your head.
No, Christopher Maloney is just, he's stepped the game up too, Patton Oswalt too. Just everybody on that show has just taken that simple concept that they did from the Grant Morrison material, and now they're just running with it into a completely odd, weird direction, and it works, and it does a lot of things, and it's great. But like I say, it's an acquired taste that you just have to kind of sit there and go, okay, I get it. But it's definitely worth a watch, so we definitely support that. And this Friday, Swamp Thing debuts on the DC Universe.
Okay.
So Doom Patrol wrapped up last week, which was phenomenal. I could go on and on and on about it. Maybe I'll just have to do a blog. I don't know. We'll see. Doom Patrol closed out so strong. Swamp Thing is looking amazing, though. If you really want a horror comic book show, this is looking like it's going to deliver. It's coming out every Friday starting the 31st of May. Definitely intrigued by it. The latest trailer looked amazing. So I know there was a little speculation. Oh, no, it's only going to be 10 episodes. Obviously, if it looks like it does on the trailer and the story is strong, I don't care. You can make it 5 episodes for all I care. But the thing that is going to have to really drive the show is viewers streaming this, talking about it. So if you are all behind this, like I say, I tweet about Doom Patrol at least once a week, if not once a day. You got to get behind this show if you really want to see it come back. And definitely send that message to the DC Universe upper echelon to let them know that you want to see obscure characters that are not Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman in their own shows and see where they go.
Yeah, because yes, this is a streaming platform, so it's obviously a little different than conventional TV. So you might think to yourself, the viewers don't really matter. It's on a streaming platform. They don't got to worry about viewers. It's there for people to watch. No, the viewers matter. We've seen it with other platforms and other very popular shows on other platforms that, get canceled for one reason or another, but it ends up being, oh, listen, we know people like it, but the viewers aren't there.
Right. Not everything needs to be a big legendary superhero. This is how you build up audiences, because Deadpool did not start out this way.
No.
And now Deadpool is one of the biggest faces at Marvel, without question.
Yeah.
You can't even argue that point. So to see something like this happen for the DC Universe shows, I think is a great thing. They've been putting on so much quality shows. Titans was better than the first trailer. We've said this on the show before. Doom Patrol is flat out amazing. If you want to talk about Let's Get Weird, they do it, but they do it with the feel of the DC Vertigo universe, and it works so well. I'm expecting big things from Swamp Thing, so definitely check it out as it debuts May 31st. Let's get into some comics, though, to close out.
Okay.
Because there was some big news that dropped since last episode that Bright Guy Signal had something to say about. I definitely had something to say about. Tom King, the man, the myth, the legend, who has been absolutely crushing it on Batman, who is scheduled to write like a 100-episode or issue saga, shall I say, was announcing that he was leaving the book after issue 85.
Okay.
Which definitely threw me for a loop because I'm like, no. He's really taken the man and put him into Batman. He's dealing with a lot more real-world issues that we haven't really seen. Because like I say, my favorite version of Batman has been Snyder and Capullos because they put the fear in him, and you kind of see how he overcomes the fear. This one has been taking it from more of a human aspect and really kind of seeing how he handles that situation of just dealing with everyday life on top of his own crazy world of being Batman. But it was finally announced a day later that he is going to be now taking over a Batman Catwoman series that's going to be featuring Heroes in Crisis artist Clay Mann that is going to basically finish out his run. Now this is going to tie in Continuum, so it's not going to be like an alternate universe. It's not going to be anything like that. It's slated to debut, I believe I read, January of 2020.
Okay.
So it's going to be 12 issues, and then it's going to finish out his story. I am super excited for this because the story has been amazing. I know that there's been a lot of, I don't want to say controversy, but I guess there has been about the whole Batwoman or Batman Catwoman wedding not happening, X, Y, and Z. Let the story go and let him breathe. Because you know what, Tom King has written this masterpiece, and to see how it's going to finish after 100 issues, you don't have that in comics today. It's almost unheard of. So to see it happen, and the fact that DC is letting him finish, I'm all for. I have no idea who's going to take over Batman. My guess, my unofficial ODPH guess, is going to be Brian Michael Bendis.
Okay.
I'm already going to throw it out there. I don't know anything official. As soon as I find it, we'll be posting on Twitter about it. And not to mention, since we've been talking about Tom King and Scott Snyder and Greg Capullo, this week at your local comic book shops, DC has one of the strongest lineups dropping. Pat, are you ready?
Sure, hit me with it.
Okay, so we have Leviathan Rising, which is the new Superman storyline that's going on by Brian Michael Bendis, which if you saw the Supergirl ending, the season finale, they have tied this in.
Yep.
So this is going to be a whole game-changing event for the Superman universe. And like I said, if you saw the Supergirl season finale, this is going to kind of prelude where they're going.
I'll say Superman don't do nothing small.
No. So I expect big things from this, and if Bendis is attached to it, look out. This is going to have some huge, huge impact on the Man of Steel universe. Then we talk about Tom King and Clay Mann. Heroes in Crisis 9, they end that epic saga, which has definitely been one of the most interesting reads in all of comics over the past year. To see how this is all resolved is going to be something to read. Definitely get down and pick it up at your local comic shop. You also have Doomsday Clock 10, Jeff Johns, Gary Frank doing Watchmen versus the DCU.
Say it's after getting delayed a couple times, finally coming out.
Right. So the fact that we're at now issue number 10, it's going to be wrapping up sometime this year, we think. But
hopefully.
That series has been spot on. And to say about doing Watchmen right and doing justice to the characters that Alan Moore created, Jeff Johns has taken his time. He's done a great job with it. Really interested to see how it goes. It's kind of interesting they're tying in same day that Heroes in Crisis ends. And then last but not least, Batman Last Night on Earth, Snyder Capullo's swan song to Batman is out. Issue number 1. Do you really want me to start amping up about this?
Sure.
Okay. My love affair about their run. They've put the fear into Batman, which hadn't happened for a while. Scott Snyder has written the best Batman, and Greg Capullo's artwork has been nothing short of just amazing to match it. Their epic storylines from The Court of Owls to Death of the Family to Endgame to even trying to take a stab at year 1 and doing 0 year.
Mm-hmm.
It has been nothing short of just an epic run. That was one of the bright spots of the New 52, because when you did all the resets, you weren't sure what's happening. So to see how they do it here has been just truly phenomenal. And then obviously they dipped into it with a little of DC Metal, which is its own wild, trippy ride that I can't even get into. It was just, as much of a crazy, over-the-top hero saga that you would expect. That, I mean, I don't even know how you get into describing it. It's just has been so spot on and so amazing, and just everything with it, just to see where it's kind of stepped into now. And now we're wrapping up with the future, the Last Night on Earth. I don't even know what to expect. Just sheer brilliance and just a lot of just amazingness. I can just seriously go on and on and on about just the accolades I can give Snyder and Capullo, because they write arguably the best Batman and write and draw them. Just get down to your local comic shop, check it out. There's more books out there too. It's definitely worth going down there. Obviously there's so much down there right now, but just DC alone. Now, we haven't even talked about any of the other comic companies down there, so definitely hit up your local shops and check that out. And to end with, Robercon's Early Bird Special is ending this week too. Robercon.org for badge information. Definitely check it out. We're going to be down there, so why don't you join us in September? That's all we got for this week. So for Padawan J,
Thank you.
I'm your host, Kenem. Thank you as always for listening to the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, #ODPH podcast. We'll see you next time.